They are hands down one of the most amazing and popular metal bands to come out of the Los Angeles music scene during the late 1970s and into the 1980s. They have sold over 15 million records worldwide. Lead singer Don Dokken of the band Dokken. Don, what's happening, my brother?
Not much, JJ. I'm just enjoying life. Getting over a little jet lag. I just took a little trip around the world for a month. It was a great experience, and it gave me a lot of inspiration to come home and write a new record.
Very nice, Don. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about the brand new studio album that you guys are working on. And Don, so I mean, it really all started with your first band, Airborne, in 1979, which actually landed you a record deal in Germany, right?
I just was living in Manhattan Beach and playing the local Hollywood scene like everybody was. We were playing with Van Halen, Quiet Riot, Rat, all those bands. We were playing the Star with the Whiskey, the True. You know, we're doing the same circuit that everybody was. We used to do a lot of shows at Van Halen back in like 78, 77, and then I just happened to be playing at the Whiskey, and some people were there from Germany visiting, and they owned a huge rock club in Hamburg, saw my band, and said, wow, we'd love to have a band like you come over, and we have all the equipment. If you can just get yourself some plane tickets, we'll put you up and we'll feed you. And I said, sounds like a good thing to me, because the music scene was starting to die as far as hard rock. A new wave had come in, My Sharona and all those kind of songs were going more. That's all they were playing. They weren't playing rock and roll. And Van Halen hadn't broken yet. So I said, I'll go to Germany. And I went to Germany and I ran into a producer who's the producer of the Scorpions. And he said, oh, your vibrato's similar to Klaus Meine. Would you like to do some background vocals on the Blackout album? I said, hell yeah, I'd love to do some background vocals. So that's how it started. And he let me do a demo, and the rest is history. I got a record deal.
And so, Don, in 1983, America got to hear Dokken's debut album, Breaking the Chains, which was originally released in Europe about 2 years earlier. And some of the tracks were different on the U.S. release and the UK release. Tell me about that.
Well, we did the album after I got the record deal. Dieter gave me a really good deal to work what they call the Studio B, and Michael Wagner, who became a very famous producer, lived in Hamburg, and so he came up and produced it. We just wrote it, but after we did the album, it was pretty successful in Germany, and then George and Jeff and me and Juan Crusade, who after that tour went to Rat, we did a television show there and did a big tour. But we came back to America and nobody wanted it. They just said, nah. They actually said it was too heavy and too melodic. Which way? You got to go one direction. Are you pop or are you hard rock? And I said, well, why can't we do both? And nobody wanted it. They just didn't. So for 2 years, we basically just kind of went our own way, and I just kept trying and finally got a manager, and we just kept pushing. And I finally just took the record and marched it into Elektra Records and just kind of barged my way in to the president and said, look, I know I don't have an appointment, but just can you give me 5 minutes, please, I'm begging you, and play this one song, Breaking the Chains. And I played it for him, and he said, wow, that's a cool song. It's very catchy. Let me think about it. He arranged for a showcase for us, brought all the A&R people in. We did a showcase, and then the rest is history.
And it's so great, playing all this great music is wonderful, but actually having you guys as the musicians tell the stories behind the music, I think that's what really gels it all together.
Yeah, I think people, it was just fantasy that people just, if you had long hair and a cute front singer, you get a record deal. It wasn't that. I mean, there was a lot of signing. It was like I got lucky because I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and the scene was busting out. And Van Halen hit the scene, that first album just went mega huge. And then Quiet Riot broke out, went to number 1, beat out Michael Jackson's Thriller. They were the first rock band to ever, go to number 1. So when the record company saw that Quiet Riot and Van Halen and all these bands were making noise and making money, then everybody woke up and said there's more to life than just pop. There's more than, I'm not knocking the other bands, but it was, if you listen to the radio back then, it was, Pat Benatar and Leonard Skinner and the Knack, and that was about it. They weren't playing any rock except for Van Halen. So I was at the right time, at the right place, and I had a good company. Elektra was the Kings. They had Metallica, and they had everybody, So they pushed us on the radio, and they said, look, the fans will either like the song or they won't. And then that's nothing we can do about that. We'll get it out there to them, and if they like it and you sell records, then you've got a career. If it doesn't, and it didn't really sell. Breaking the Chain sold 100,000 copies. We did an arena tour with Blue Oyster Cult and Aldo Nova. We came back from the tour, and the record company said, you did really pretty good, sold 100,000, and you're only $500,000 in debt to us. So that was a problem. I thought, what's the point? We were broke, and our manager put us all on a $250 a week salary, and we all were, roommates, and Mick and I got an apartment, and George was living with somebody, and we all just were struggling, trying to figure out what to do, and that's when I went to the record company and said, look, I'm begging you to give us one more try. Just give us one more chance, one more record. We'll do it as cheap as we can. And that's why I came up with the title Tooth and Nail, because we knew it was Tooth and Nail. It was like, if this next record doesn't go, it's over. We got to go out and get jobs and work a regular gig, and the dream is gone. So I guess that pressure made us all go to Four Corners. And we wrote about 20 songs. And lucky for me, I had this little apartment in Culver City, and it was a tiny little bachelor apartment. I had this little 4-track machine, and I wrote songs like Into the Fire and Alone Again, and those songs that became hits.
And Don, I grew up listening to you guys on KNAC and Pirate Radio here in Los Angeles. And I got to ask you a question. So on the Tooth and Nail studio album that became Dokken's sophomore studio album, and how was it working with Tom Lehrman on Tooth and Nail album? Was it kind of weird, or was it a good experience?
Well, Tom came in to produce originally, but then I told him I really fought hard. I wanted Michael, because Michael had done Breaking the Chains. I thought he was great. And then Michael was living at my house. We were roommates. So Michael was there, Mick, me. We were all just, trying to make a living. We were actually after that tour, I was buying cars, like junky old cars, and Michael always laughs about that now. And we'd try to fix them up and fix the little problem. And we're going to junkyards every day getting parts. And we'd fix these cars up and primer them and just sell them. And that's make a couple $100 to pay our rent. We were really, really struggling. And then I went to Elektra. Metallica had a new album coming out, and they weren't happy with the mix on, I can't remember the song now, the song that became one of their first popular songs. I said, why don't you let Michael Wagner take a crack at it? And they said, who's Michael Wagner? I said, have you ever heard the band Accept, Balls of the Wall? And they said, yeah. I said, that is an amazing sounding record, and Michael did it. Give him a shot. So Metallica liked the band Accept, and they gave him a shot. He did the song. So then he got his feet on the ground, and that gave him the green light to engineer Tooth and Nail. So it was Tom Lehrman, Michael Wagner, but unfortunately, toward the end of the record, Tom got sick, and he ended up in a hospital in the middle of the record. He had to have surgery, so we were down with no producer, just Michael, and Roy Thomas Baker, who everybody knows Roy Thomas Baker is. He's done everybody from Led Zeppelin to everybody. And Roy came in and wrapped it up for us.
And during the spring and summer of 1985, if you were anywhere near your American rock radio, you couldn't help but hear the great power ballad Alone Again. Tell me how you came up with that idea for that particular song, Don, because it sounds so very, very different than everything else that Dokken had recorded up to that point.
It's weird about Alone Again, which became our signature ballad. I had actually written that song in the 70s in Airborne, and I recorded it, a little demo, in a little studio for like $150. And Bobby Blotzer was playing drums at the time with me, and Juan Crucier and me. And we did the song, but it just ended up on a cassette and disappeared. And I'd forgotten about it. And then we were doing Tooth and Nail. During that year, when we were doing that, Journey had the huge hit, Lights Go Down the City, and all that. And everybody was coming out with ballads, and they were, taken off across what they called AOR, which is album-oriented rock, then there was CHR, contemporary. So they said, if you want to cross over both barriers, you need a ballad. And Jeff and I just started digging through a bunch of cassettes I had, and I came across Alone Again, and Jeff and I looked at it, listened to it, and we just revamped it. And we just kept the chorus and some of the lyrics, and Jeff and I rewrote it, and it is what it is, and it came out, and we hit the lottery.
And the movie Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, one of my all-time favorite metal tunes when I was growing up as a kid, is that title track, Dream Warriors. How did you guys get handpicked for to be a part of that movie soundtrack? I mean, what a great rocker that is.
Well, we were getting very famous by then, and the movie was already titled. The movie was already decided it was going to be called Dream Warriors. So that was the title, and the producer, or the director of that movie, again, it's slipping my mind, very famous director of Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street, and he liked Dokken, and he liked us. So he called my manager, Cliff, and Cliff Bernstein said, and so he said, can they write a song and have the title called Dream Warriors and make it kind of eerie and heavy and dark and to fit the mood of the movie? And of course, there had already been the first Nightmare on Elm Street, so I watched them. I saw a couple rough clips of the new one with Patricia Arquette. I think that was the first movie she ever did. She was only about 18 years old. So we just sat down, and then by then there was a couple riffs going on in the band. So actually, Jeff and Nick, I think, and George, they went and wrote a version. I wrote a separate version. That was more of a hard rock up-tempo one. And then we just gave both versions to the movie company, and they picked the version that came out.
And Don, I know in 1989 you pursued an amazing worldwide solo career, but I know you guys are back here in town in Los Angeles in Southern California, and I know you guys are playing a few gigs. I know you guys are playing at the Coach House. And what else can we expect from Dokken in this upcoming year?
Well, like I said, I've just been on, I took a month, I've been all over the world 20 plus times, but it's always on tour. I don't see much. I always laugh when people said, "How was Paris? How was the Eiffel Tower?" I said, "I wouldn't know. I just saw it out the tour bus window about 4 miles in the distance." So I wanted to go around the world, and I just got back like 4 days ago. Went to India and Rajasthan and Thailand, Japan, England. I just went all over the world traveling to see things, different cultures. Gave me a lot of inspiration, so I just came back and I said, "Look, let's, you guys ready to go back on the road?" So we thought we'd do the Coach House and the Canyon Club just as a startup, just to get our feet wet, because we haven't played in a couple months, before we start playing the bigger arenas. Next month we're playing with Bret Michaels and Rat, and then we have a lot of bigger shows coming up, in the springtime, playing the festivals or stuff like that. And once we had just finished playing heavy touring in the summer, like 30,000 people, Sweden Rock, played in Spain, Italy, Greece, sometimes headlining, sometimes supporting with all these great bands, and we were just tired and we needed to regroup. So I haven't made a record since Broken Bones. It's one of my favorite records, and it's been over 2 years now, and it's just time to write a new record, and it's time to, we're in a good position because we've had success, we've made a lot of money, and we got famous, and that's all fun. And beyond that, it's not about that. It's just about, I'm a musician, and I have to write songs. It's what I do. It's in my DNA. It's not about making money. It's not about fame anymore. It's, I'm financially secure, so now it's just about the rush. And the rush is to be on stage and be playing and see people singing the words, looking happy, fists in the air. Nobody can understand what that feels like unless they've been on stage. In front of 10 people, 10,000, or stadiums, 100,000. It's the ultimate rush. So I miss it, and I want to go out and do it, and the boys want to do it. So we're going. That's really this way it is,
Awesome, man. Yeah, I totally hear you, Don. I mean, I go up on stage just to introduce bands, and I get butterflies. I can't imagine what it's like to be a musician in front of thousands of fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing about endorphins and what they call the hypothalamus in the front of your brain, which controls all your emotions and your adrenaline and something about music. I mean, can you imagine the world without music? I can't.
No.
And it would be very strange to watch a movie. There's no music in the background. I laugh now when you watch CNN. There's like heavy rock music playing in the background. It's hilarious. I mean, who would have thought that you're going, "This is CNN." It goes dun 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 dun. Like, wow, that's a pretty cool riff. I mean, that wasn't like that 20 years ago. They're playing like fairy dust music. So now, I mean, everything has to have music. It makes the world go round.
Yeah, Don, I totally agree with you, my friend. And I've been in the business for about 20 years now, and heard a lot of stories about how music is so very, very powerful. I think it's one of the most powerful sources of energy in the universe, in my opinion.
It's interesting, if you have a relationship and it breaks up and it's going south, and you listen to a song like "Alone Again" and it evokes sadness or memories or regret, and it evokes those emotions. Or if you're going out on a Friday night and you're feeling like you want to go out, but you've worked your ass off all week, 8 hours, 9 hours a day, and you want to get out and have some fun, and you turn on a radio and you hear jungle, it's just full of power, and it gets you going, and bands like Guns N' Roses just go, "Yeah, man, that's what I want to hear when I'm going out on Friday night," or "I want to hear Tooth and Nail by Dokken." It's interesting how music just has this emotional power on affecting your moods.
Very well said, Don. And see Dokken perform live at the Coach House this Saturday night, February 6th. For more information on Dokken, simply go to DokkenCentral.com. Lead singer Don Dokken of the band Dokken. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Jay. You take care of yourself, and I will see you at the Coach House.